and now we're going to move to the presentation of awards. And the first presenter for the first award tonight is going to be Jill Smith, the ESTHER board representative from First Congregational. Hi, Jill.
Hi everyone, what a wonderful evening it is. Yeah.
There you go.
I'm very excited to give this award. I'm extremely proud, and I don't think there's any question that this organization would be chosen as our Community Leadership Award recipient. This organization was formed out of crisis. It was formed immediately after the murder of George Floyd, and they believed that in their community it was inherent to provide a sanctuary, to provide a place to speak freely, and to provide a place to develop future goals. It's emotional to know the creative effort needed to start something new, and they did it. They have since become a pillar in the community and have been recognized by the Governor Evers. Governor Evers came directly to them to shake their hand and said, "Good job." So with nothing more to say, I am proud to say that People of Progression is the Community Leadership Award winner. Yes, very much so, very much so. Kanan Davenport, will you please come up? Thank you so much. We have made a plaque for your group, and it is the picture of their group that is also in the ESTHER yearbook, and this is for you.
Thank you, Jill. Sure. Hello, everybody, all the good folks of ESTHER. It's a privilege to be here. My name is Kanan Davenport. I'm one of the founders of People of Progression, as well as one of the owners of Taper's Barbershop right here in Appleton. We're in Menasha now. I really would like to say thank you to you all for believing in us. ESTHER, you all believed in us in the very beginning when we first started. And we needed the support. We appreciate the support, and thank you all.
I wanted to say thank you too. It's been a really long road so far. We started in the basement of Taper's, and with Kay's Barbershop, we're giving mental health supports and things like that to people that didn't have a voice or a place in the community at that time because of the reasons might have been political, the reasons might have been being too scared to talk about it, but our community needed to talk about it, and we can't be scared to talk about it because otherwise that's how our mental health continues to suffer. So we filled that need, and over time our mission grew, and now we provide domestic violence services, sexual assault services. We also provide crisis advocacy, housing advocacy, and do court accompaniments with clients as well. And we're really pleased to tell you that 2 years later now we are opening an office in Appleton. We've already signed a lease, and we're really trying to keep on getting community programs. Thank you. Since I know that ESTHER is very action orientated, I just wanted to give you a couple calls to action if I can. Please be a voice for our local, county, and state government advocating for more funding, resources, and partnerships with culturally specific organizations like ours due to historical trauma and the trauma of not receiving equitable resources in our current also direct service organizations that work with culturally specific backgrounds. So sometimes, you know, we have great supports out in the community, but they might not be trained to deal with different cultures. And that's a huge barrier for our communities. And then they seek out us and say, well, they didn't help me. Will you help me? So we need more resources. We need more people like you advocating in those government bodies and telling them that we need more funding to go down the line to be able to get to our resources. Another is raise awareness of culturally specific organizations in spaces that provide services, mental health, advocacy, and crisis support. More institutions also, those institutions providing those resources also please refer clients to us. That doesn't take away from your institutions. There's such thing as co-advocating, so if you all could please raise and amplify those types of words of advice to other organizations, that it doesn't take anything from you to still pour into us. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Joan Jensen to come up to present the next award.
When the committee was deciding on a individual leadership award this year, somebody said, how about Sarah Kampanik? And guess what we all said? What? Sarah's never gotten this award through all the years that she's been working with Esther and working hard. Believe me, you can tell tonight she's still working. So anyway, we decided, well, you know why? Because the first time we mentioned it, and she heard about it, she got the most pained look in her face. I mean, it was kind of sad, and I think after a while we thought, well, we don't want to make her uncomfortable, you know, but we decided no. This year we made a deal with her, actually. We said, if you accept the award, you don't have to make a big acceptance speech. So I think this will be rather short. And if you have had a chance to see our book for 22, on page 31 is Sarah's picture and a little article written by a friend. And so I'm going to repeat some of it. Sarah is a person who has a tireless passion for justice, and wherever she experiences injustice, she believes in action. She is literally unable to accept injustice without speaking or acting out with some means of power. Our whole community has benefited from her work, but she is reluctant to accept a claim, that's putting it mildly. So we are honored to express our thanks for this award. She does represent our best efforts. Now I want to read you, though, what the plaque says. It's expressed very well. Would you want to come up while I'm doing this? That would be nice. I forgot to say that I used to introduce myself as the person following Sarah Bennett. But, it's getting harder to do that. So, anyway, but I decided we could do this. So, the plaque reads, in recognition of your vision and work for equity and racial justice, you have been chosen to receive this year's ESTHER Individual Leadership Award. Your outstanding dedication and leadership with ESTHER and the League of Women Voters, as well as within your own faith community, has not gone unnoticed. Combined with your efforts towards restorative justice within our prison reform efforts, you have become a beacon of hope for a more just community. You are special.
Thank you for giving that. Well, thank you, Joan, who has been an important person in my life since 1998. And I want to talk about the beginning of ESTHER because in the beginning it was Reverend Joe Elwinger from Wisdom in Milwaukee who came up, and Reverend Joel Schlachtenhofen from St. Mark's Lutheran in Neenah, who planted the seed of ESTHER in the Fox Valley. And then Reverend Maynard Beamer from First Congregational Church in Appleton added his wisdom to help ESTHER grow. And Gwen Gibson, a dear friend, contributed her life experiences. So many of you have added your talents and your passion to make ESTHER into a recognized and blossoming garden in the Fox Valley. So it's your passion and efforts that have grown ESTHER. So what a blessing to have people like you with a heart for justice in our community. And for me, that's what keeps faith, love, and hope alive. So thank you for this.
So congratulations to the award recipients, really well deserved on both parts. I'm supposed to lead this next section, which is to honor ESTHER's very first organizer when they started, those many years ago, Reverend Joe Elwinger. I've personally had the privilege of actually knowing Joe longer than Joan has known Sarah. When I first started working with Micah in Milwaukee back in 1997, Joe was the past president of Micah already. Joe had actually founded that organization in 1988, building on his incredible depth of history. And I don't have time to kind of go into all of that, but for those of you who know Joe, I mean, he's kind of a living history book, and he's really been at the heart of things when there's been some major social change in this country. And he's a man of immense courage. As a white pastor in Birmingham in the 50s and early 60s, he stood up for racial justice when it was not just not cool, it was dangerous. It was very dangerous. Joe was talking on the way up that the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church, in which one of Joe's parishioners was killed, was on September 15th, 1963. So today's kind of a special day in a lot of ways for Joe. Joe, after serving many, many years at Cross Lutheran Church in Milwaukee, where he not only started Micah, he started a group called Project. There's a million things in Milwaukee that Joe started, and that are still going. I mean, Joe doesn't start things that are going to be fly by night. When Joe helps get something started, it stays and it sticks. When Joe retired as a pastor, we were kind of in a bidding war. Joyce and Joe were thinking of going to Africa and kind of had thoughts about that. And Anna Garcia Ashley and I were sort of madly lobbying Joe to say, why don't you stay here? Maybe you could kind of help to grow this faith-based organizing thing. I'm not sure if that's what made the difference, but thank goodness for all of our sake, Joyce and Joe decided to stay around. And Joe took on the job as the expansion organizer for Wisdom. We gave him no plan, we gave him no budget, we gave him no nothing. It was just like, there you go. And not only that, he only wanted to work half-time. So I don't know what it was half of. I mean, maybe like, the other half the time was when he did things like sleep. Because Joe was indefatigable, driving thousands of miles every month. Joe knew Joel Schlachtenhaufen. And all of us on the staff had to learn how to say Schlachtenhaufen. And Joe came up and he did, this is community organizing at its best. He met Joel. Joel introduced him to some other people, introduced him to some other people, introduced him to some other people, and Joe kept following that chain and gathering up people who really had a passion for justice, gathering up people who really cared about making a difference. One of the things that Reverend Outwanger taught me was that you can start something if you can find 3 people who aren't all the same, who are willing to come together and commit themselves to each other and commit themselves to a cause. So you've heard 2 of the names from up here. Joel Schlachtenhaufen, who helped get us started, and Maynard Beamer, who was just a stalwart. And I thought maybe we could take just a second just to remember the 2 of them, who both passed now. But Joe also gathered people like Sarah and Joan and Gwen and all kinds of people, and really helped to get this organization off the ground. And you can see. I don't have to tell you the rest of the story because you are the rest of the story. Esther has really become something amazing, and Esther has become something we can really be proud of, that's really made a very positive difference, and that, as best I can tell, really is here to stay, that this is something permanent. So I'm going to invite Gary Crevier to step up, who has a memento for Reverend Ellwanger and for Joyce, I believe.
Joyce and Joe, Reverend Joe, please come up. What a great honor it is to have 2 walking icons with us this evening. Joe, as you walk up into the sunset, please accept this walking stick. Meet in my garage. And Joyce, we know Joe wouldn't have been able to do anything without your support and encouragement for your great work. A sun catcher of the ESTHER logo.
Thank you for this great gift here. You don't realize how practical this is going to be. Not only in walking, but I had a pretty dangerous fall back in January, and so the therapist taught me 3 exercises that I need to keep working at every day, and I should have a stick like this that works like so, and that definitely will be used, I assure you. And I have to say that we are both honored to be recognized after almost 20 years of your life together. And I have to thank folks like Anna Garcia Ashley and David Liners, who twisted my arm, and no, I didn't have to do a whole lot of twisting, but were agents of the Spirit to call me into organizing congregation-based organizations around the state so that Wisdom would have a strong voice in Madison to really weigh in on state legislation. And it's shown itself at many levels, and has certainly been a joy to see that it wasn't just a concept that was nice, but it really worked. One of the examples, if you don't know it, is the passage finally of the treatment alternatives and diversionary programming in the state of Wisconsin that permits people who have drug and mental health issues to go to treatment instead of to prison. And that is the moving. But that might not have happened if it hadn't been for Wisdom that went to Madison and twisted Carol Ressler's arm and a few others, and it happened, and we keep expanding it, we keep working at it. It's still not everything that it, I'm careful, I'm going to start getting off on some organizing here this evening, and that's not my job. In fact, Connie Rather gave me the word that I'm supposed to keep it under 5 minutes. So I told her to give me the high sign at 4 minutes, and she better do that, because believe me, I can keep going and keep going. But I think not only David and Anna Garcia Ashley, who got me into this, I have to thank Joel Schlachtenhoff and Maynard Beamer and a few others who at the very beginning got it and saw that justice is not just a nice word, and it's not something political only. It is very theological, very spiritual, and something that every faith community had better be engaged in, or they're not listening to their own beliefs and the Spirit. I've got a timekeeper here who knows how to keep good, but I'm going to resist a little bit here. But I have to especially thank every one of you, because my work in Appleton, getting ESTHER started 20 years ago, would have been in vain if it had not been for a Sarah Companion and a Gwen Gibson and a few others who really have helped keep it going, and all of you keep it going and growing, and I would love to see and hear of the continued growth and continued work. It was Connie, who gave me not only marching orders, but told me what to talk about. So she said, how did we get started? And Joyce says, finished. But she also said, tell us how we keep going. And here's where I really want to underscore that every justice worker needs to be in touch with why it is that I'm doing justice work. Because if we don't have a deep reason for that, if we're just sort of doing this as a lark, it probably isn't going to last. But if we have a very deep reason for this, we will never put up with injustice. And David commented and indicated that this is a very special day for Joyce and me, I was pastor of a black congregation in Birmingham in 1963, and on September 15th, the 16th Street Church was bombed and 4 beautiful girls died. I participated in the funeral of 3 of them. You don't forget that kind of event. And to this very day, those 4 girls remind me that the KKK that bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church 59 years ago are not dead. That not only is the KK alive, there's the Proud Boys, and there's the Oath Keepers, and there's the folks who live by lies and who force those lies on people to keep them fearful and keep them afraid of diversity and togetherness and the beloved community. And we must forever continue to stand up for the truth, for togetherness, for the beloved community. And I see you as the beloved community. Keep up the good work. Do not give up, ever.
Thank you so much, Joe. I'm blinded right now by your words as well. Thank you. A couple of months ago, in our leadership board meeting, we had a potluck gathering after the meeting for our lead organizer, Bill Van Lopik, who was going to be there for his last meeting because he was going into retirement. And at that time, we had a good time. We shared the food, we shared memories, we shared the fantastic 6 years, almost 6 years that Bill spent with us and worked with us, to the point where we are constantly moving in a good direction that Bill has helped us with to become more of an anti-racist organization. I say more because you can never say we're there. It's always an ongoing, growing process, and Bill has taught us that very much so. Bill is a very gracious man. He's a man who listens well. He's a man who always makes people feel present, feel comfortable in his presence. That's his gift, and then he listens well, listening for their stories, and then inviting them to join the work of justice based upon their passion for what they feel needs to be done. Because of Bill's work with us, he has opened the doors to us to a whole new venue, an awareness of the needs of the Menominee Nation and all Native American tribes in our country. Bill, you are a very special man who will always be remembered, who has helped us along the road of growing and becoming more than what we are. Thank you so much. And I'd like to invite Nancy Baressa up to share with you what she shared with us at that last meeting. She wrote a reflection about Bill's tenure and time with us.
Well, I don't know too many of you guys. I used to be on the board, and I've been 20 years in immigration, so I know about half the room. If you're on another task force with all the Zoom stuff going on, I probably haven't seen you. But I've been doing immigration work right from the beginning. I was at one of Joe Ellwanger's first one-on-one meetings in Appleton. So I remember him going back that far. And then we were deciding, what are we going to do? And of course, immigration came up because I was at St. Therese. And at that point, we were about 50% Hispanic, and a lot of undocumented people were there. And I had been to the countries they came from because I've done mission work for about 30 years. And so I've been there and I knew where they were coming from, so immigration was just it. Now I've kind of moved on a little bit. I'm still in the immigration task force. I'm also on the Wisdom immigration calls, and I'm now on civil rights for immigrants with Gamaliel. And I've been writing their reflections for their retreats and different prayer times, so it's been really nice. But when Bill was retiring and that announcement came out, I had to literally beg Gary to let me write something. I mean, it was really sad, but, hey, I thought, but he was worried I was going to get this microphone and not give it up. I know that's where he was coming from. So you have to take this in context because, of course, I wrote it for a meeting that happened a couple months ago. We didn't have an organizer hired. And one of my traditions with Bill and Ropick was when I came to the board meeting, I would hand him what I called my Esther dues. It was my check to Esther in an envelope. And he always laughed and he said, I can't believe you called these the Esther dues. So when I referenced that in the poem that I wrote, I just want you to know that's what that was all about. So this was before I had already met Katie and had to sit down with her and everything. So this was before you, Katie, so don't take that offensively in any way. All right. I came to Esther in the early days when leadership was fluid and we were finding our way. Churches were courted and one-on-ones were key to deciding which task forces there would finally be. Meetings started, folks came together, but not every task force were birds of a feather. But we got through some tough times and settled in, and the first long-time organizer was about to begin. Stephanie was young, full of energy, and set quite a pace. Loved to agitate and get in folks' face. She was fully hands-on and loved to attack the right. Taught us all a thing or two about rallies and putting up a good fight. But she had to move on. We burned her out, poor soul. Working with old farts can really take a toll. And now we come to Bill. No major age difference here. Could he handle the pace with these added years? Was he overqualified with that PhD? Would he make us call him doctor? Not for me. 45 years of medicine, I'd done that shtick, already paid my doctor dues working with the sick. Seemed a bit laid back, but anxious to begin the work. Maybe all the education and prior travel will be a perk. He jumped in with one-on-ones like a house of fire. Maybe this would be a solid hire. Attended the task force meetings and board as well. Stayed in the background unless there was news to tell. Learned our work and took on state work too. Soon was working on the Spanish week-long crew. Love knowing interpretation was always there. Waiting for Connie and I to do it was still up in the air, and we're not kidding. But looking over the last 6 years, it's hard to believe my initial fears. New churches were courted and brought on board. The Menominee story had come to the fore. Mining issues were laid out for us, and his students at our meetings were always a plus. Task forces multiplied as the issues grew. If there was interest, leadership, it was Esther knew. Grant writing came naturally with all that education, and Bill seemed to handle each situation. He was rarely the feature, but in the background, liked to raise up others whose passion was found. He moved to Zoom with the pandemic fears. I will always remember him with light buds in his ears. COVID Esther never missed a beat. Tune just changed, but no retreat. So we send you off with thanks and good cheers, and can't believe it's been 6 years. Now I wonder who could take your place. Is there someone to continue the race? To social justice for our areas downtrodden, and new vistas where our outlook can broaden. Know that you will be missed. Is there someone out there who is Bill with a twist? But while we are focused on all we will lose, at least I remembered this, I paid my dues.
Thank you, Nancy. And Bill, please come on now. I know that we have gifted you with a gift at your farewell gathering. but we have another walking stick. So for someone who is walking into a new chapter in his life, and I say a new chapter because he is going to be with us as a volunteer. Thank you, Bill, ever so much.
For me, it's been an incredible honor to serve you. And you know, Esther and Wisdom are really unique. Places I've traveled around the United States, there aren't very many groups of people like this who are advocates and who make change, and you guys are special. I gotta say you're special. You know, we talk about the history, and I want to just give a challenge as I leave. We talk about the rich history with Reverend Ellwanger and Sarah and Gwen, and we're based on that. It's kind of like the Native American 7 generations. You know, we're kind of in the middle of that generations, but we got a future, we got a past, and that future. And Gary alluded to this. I like to listen, and I want to challenge everyone here. Who are you listening to? And I really encourage you to listen to those who are marginalized, those who are immigrants, those who have been formerly incarcerated, those in the LGBTQ community, those in who take the bus to get to work and to get around. They're everywhere. That's where we have to get our guidance on where we go in the future, is listening to folks who, how can we work for justice if we don't know what injustice is? And to see it and hear those stories from people. And that's just my encouragement for you all as we move into the future, is to have those one-on-ones with people who are unlike you, who look different, who talk different, who think different, who are completely different. And that's where the soul of Esther is going to be in the future, to make this a valid, incredible, and powerful organization, more than we already are. So that's just one of the challenges I want to leave with you.
Thank you, Bill. And just one more tribute we want to give to Nettie McGee. And I call upon Rick Kitchen, who knows her well, to come and share with us a bit about this fantastic woman who lived for social justice and very active in the community, who died unexpectedly about 2 weeks ago.
So Gary asked me the other night if I could say a few words. Bear with me. I don't like to speak in front of people, and I'm very emotional. I want to just acknowledge Nettie's mother, Phyllis, is here today. So please, please forgive me for anything that I might mistakenly say. I was up on the Menominee Reservation about 4 years ago, about this time, doing some Get Out the Native Vote door hanging. And a man a little bit younger than me, Frank Van Dyke, he's Oneida. He said, Rick, I says, at near the end of the day, he says, you're down in Appleton, you know Nettie McGee. Well, sadly, I had to tell him, no, I don't. And he said, well, you should. And I want to say the thing, if none of you know Nettie or know of her, you should. Look her up, look up some YouTubes, her photos. I brought a photo over here. Well, it wasn't soon after, maybe a few months later, I was up on the Menominee Reservation again for a water event with some friends. And I see this woman walking through the veterans. There's the Veterans Memorial in Kashina there. I see her walking through, and I said, that's Nettie. Because I looked her up, I was supposed to know her. And I just went up and introduced real quick. I said, I'm Rick, you're Nettie, you were from, the area. We have a lot of things in common, and she kept on walking. When she acknowledged me, kept on walking. Nettie's a million things going on. She's just busy. She's active in everything you can think of. that would make this world a better place for everyone. That was Nettie. And it wasn't long after that I knew Nettie. She was everywhere. In any action that I was at, Nettie was there. Whether it was the environment, Line 3, missing and murdered Indigenous women, Nettie was there. She was out on the coldest day of the year in Houdini Plaza when we had our MMIW, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Vigil. Nettie was there. So get to know Nettie. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I want to introduce you to your new organizer. So, Katie, now you know that Esther's founding organizer is a legend. You followed the high energy of Stephanie. You followed the incredible wisdom of Bill. There's no pressure for you to kind of follow in their steps. I will say Esther has been blessed with really good organizers and really stable organizers. And I think that's part of why you are where you are. And I really believe that Katie's going to follow in that tradition. Katie was a very major volunteer leader in an anti-violence organization. So she knows what it is to be a volunteer. She knows what it is to kind of do this of her own time. She's got lots and lots of gifts. I think a lot of you have probably already gotten to know her. She's only been working for 2 weeks, and already gotten around. So just want you to greet Katie. Katie, you don't get to talk, I'm afraid. You have to be around a few years, and then then they'll invite you to talk. But I was told, no, Katie doesn't talk. So but I do want to introduce you to Katie Olson. Go ahead, Rick. Yep.
I feel sorry, folks. Just take a minute. So, if anybody's interested, there is a memorial for Nettie. We're having a little get together up on the Oneida Nation Sunday. It's going to be at the VFW on the Oneida Nation. So it's a potluck, and if anybody's interested, you can touch base with me. I can send you the info. Otherwise, it's at the VFW on the Oneida Nation, and I think it's 12 noon to 4, yeah, because the protest is after that. Speaking of what Joe said, you got to stand up. So Governor Michaels, Governor Santos from Florida, and the killer, Kyle Rittenhouse, is going to be in Green Bay on Sunday, and we're going to be protesting that.
Don't want to editorialize, but please don't say Governor Michaels. Now we're coming up to our keynote speaker, Pardeep Singh Kaleka. I know some of you have seen the book already. Pardeep felt particularly bad he couldn't come. He called and said to me that, because he and I were planning on coming up together, that he wasn't going to be able to make it. He said, I have to go to Washington, D.C. to be at this United We Stand, ceremony at the White House. And I said, Pardeep, we've all been there. But anyhow, Pardeep is, if the title most interesting man in the world wasn't already taken, Pardeep could have been a qualifier. Pardeep has just led the most interesting life. He was a police officer in the central city of Milwaukee for years. He was an educator. He's been a counselor. In recent years, he's been the head of the Interfaith Conference of Greater Milwaukee. Pardeep is part of the Sikh community in Oak Creek, just outside of Milwaukee. And the tragedy, the massacre of people at the Sikh temple obviously affected Pardeep deeply. His father was one of the people who was killed. Pardeep responded to that in kind of an amazing way. I mean, Pardeep not only kind of worked at healing, but really worked to try to understand the people who would do this kind of a thing. And has really dedicated his life to trying to build bridges to really care for the kinds of people who might be bearing that kind of hate. He's truly an amazing guy. I mean, I just, in my own tradition, I think, people who respond with so much more compassion than you would think is human nature to be able to do, that can only be the grace of God. And when I see Pardeep, I just see somebody who is just really infused with the grace of God. He's very dedicated to his faith, he's very dedicated to his family, and he's very dedicated to our country. He really believes in America. So I won't say anything more. I'll let Pardeep speak for himself. I would also, though, just suggest, feel free, just stand up, turn around, because it's going to be on the screen in the back there. So if you be sure you get to a place where you can get a decent look. You can see Pardeep's face there, and we will hear from Pardeep sing Kaleka.
Good evening, Sat Sri Akal, Namaste, Salam, Shalom. Greetings on behalf of the Interfaith Conference, the Sikh community. We are thankful to be able to present tonight and really commemorate Esther celebrating 18 years of building community, sharing hope, and standing up for justice. My name is Pardeep Singh Kaleka. Again, I'm sorry that I could not be there tonight. Today I will be speaking at the White House on the rise of hate, especially against faith communities, and just in general. And with the current political climate the way that it is, I think that tonight's conversation of bridging our divides is very timely. I also want to congratulate Pastor Joe for his longtime work in organizing and bringing people together, and really just am honored to be in the same presentation as him and all of you. So I thank you all for having us on tonight. As I think about the past 10 years of my work, most of my work has been in the public service sector. I am formerly a police officer in the city of Milwaukee, an educator, a mental health clinician, an organizer, and a faith community leader. As I think about our work in the past 10 years, what we are going forward is to take on a whole of society approach to really address the rise of hate and intolerance and injustice in our communities. This means that we all have a role to play, all of us. And faith communities continue to have an increasingly large role to play in bridging many of these divides. My hate work started 10 years ago when a white supremacist killed 7 people at the Sikh temple of Wisconsin. Following that shooting, I immersed myself into community organizing and really providing a healing lens as that hate unfolded. One of the people that I reached out to was a former white supremacist named Arnold Michaelis. He started the same organization that the shooter belonged to in our situation. And one of the questions that I first had for Arnold was, why do white supremacists do these types of things and commit these crimes of hate? And not in just the simplest of forms, but if I boil it down, one of the things that he reminded me of was that hurt people sometimes hurt other people. And this took me on a long journey of understanding the role of pain in our society. And this pain, when we understand it, has been here for a very long time. And us, as Americans, I believe have become a bit numb at listening to pain. And this can be from a personal or a communal place. Is that when somebody tells us about their pain, sometimes we dismiss it, other times we deny it, sometimes we reject it. A lot of times It's about ourselves and how we interpret that pain. The more and more that I have gone on in my life, I realize that this pain is steeped so deep in the soil of this country that we all must become farmers. All of us must reach our hands deep into the soil and really start to till a new generation. A generation that is less divided, less hateful, less violent, more compassionate, more loving, and more kind. And I realize that this is all of our work to do. From institutions to systems to individuals to neighbors to faith organizations, nonprofit, for-profit, all of us need to till this soil. And part of that tilling of soil comes back to how are we bridging our differences? How are we acting as the bridge? How are we walking in our faith? How are we living in that same faith? Over the past 10 years, because of my friendship to Arnold, I have been able to bridge that gap between lots of different people. Some of the most proud moments of my life have come when I have been able to bridge that gap with those that are openly hateful towards me. Today, I work as an anti-hate and de-radicalization specialist. De-radicalization in the meaning of there are people who take on extreme ideologies, whether it's political, national, religious, or all of the above. Some of them will be known as white supremacists, others will be known as sovereign citizens, anti-government, militia, and some of them will also be known as Christian fundamentals or other religious fundamentalists who have become extreme. And the way that I do my work is that I don't necessarily get too drawn into what is the presenting behavior, meaning what that person is outwardly saying. But I understand and try to tune into the pain that that person is speaking from. And when I think about how we need to bridge our differences, bridging our differences doesn't necessarily mean condoning someone else's point of view or their political beliefs or even their religious beliefs. Bridging our differences is going to happen once we become a much more understanding society that listens to pain rather than gets offended by it. And so that is what I want to encourage you as you go forward. 2020 was a very political year. 2022, 2024 will be very political as well. This is why the Biden administration is taking this anti-hate initiative so seriously. It's because we see ourselves falling apart at the seams. This democracy is very much under attack. And we need to do something to sew this back together again. And I know that is the work that Esther does. That is the work that you all have been doing for the past 18 years. So on behalf of the Sikh community, the Interfaith Conference, and all communities who want to stand up for a more loving, tolerant, and peaceful society, we look forward to doing the work with you as we go forward. Again, I'm sorry that I could not be there tonight, but I am heartened by the work that you all do, and I celebrate the work that Pastor Joe has done over the past so many years. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Okay, you can turn back this way now. And we're going to ask Jill Smith to come back up to give us our call to action.
Okay, it's me again. I want to thank Bill Green for allowing us to use his screen and projector for this event. Rock City Clip. I'm Jill Smith. I'm a member of First Congregational United Church of Christ in Appleton, and I have attended many task force meetings. After doing that, I knew I had to become a member. I first started attending prison reform meetings at St. Mark's, and now I'm involved in many other aspects of ESTHER. I find that the more that I'm involved, the more that I learn things that I could have never imagined. I learn from my ESTHER friends. They tell me to check out this book, so I'll read it, and maybe I'll just read half of it. But they tell me about Pastor Joe and Joyce Elwinger, who are true warriors of social justice. Their stories show us the way to answer a call. When Bill was the organizer, Bill, where are you? There he is. He would always talk me into doing projects. That was your job, right, Bill? One time he wanted me to interview small businesses that we sponsored in our yearbook. And I can't tell you how that project inspired me. I learned from people of progression, Kristen Gondek and Kanan Davenport, that you don't necessarily have to have a leader. You just need to support one another. And I learned from my friend Sarah that you need to get started to get things done. Ooh, I gotta check. I'm doing it. ESTHER volunteers and task force workers, will you please stand up? Can we recognize all of you and take a bow? Can we thank you and give you a round of applause? Can you all stand up? How many of you are here? Oh yeah. Look at that. Preaching to the choir here, I think. It's been so gratifying to be a part of ESTHER. I guarantee, if you want to join, you won't regret it. Maybe you want to check out a task force meeting. Maybe you want to attend an event. The ESTHER volunteers are here to help you get involved. Maybe you're an ESTHER donator. On behalf of the community, thank you for your generosity and your continued support. Your dollars go far with us. And it's clear that you all answered your own call to action tonight. You've chosen to be here with us. You knew that it was important to share a meal outside in a park to acknowledge ESTHER and what it represents. And a shout out goes to our ESTHER friends in virtual land. Hello there. Here and there, you have all answered your own call to be together. And that is the kind of call that I'm talking about. And lastly, I invite you to get out the vote. For democracy, for human rights, for social justice, and for the land. Encourage your friends and your family to vote early. See if someone needs help getting to the polls. This election is crucial for our future. Help yourself to items that are on the table. All the cookies have to go home. They can't stay here, so grab extra bags of cookies. I thank you so much for this evening. It's been wonderful. Have a good night.
Now for our closing prayer tonight, we have Pastor Amy Angabus from St. Paul's Lutheran in Neenah. Nope. So take the pencil holders, take the pens. Those should go home with you. So choose someone at your table to win the prize.
I would invite you to stand for our closing prayer and song. Let us pray. God, who is creator of all that is, seen and unseen, we give you thanks for this night, for the people that we celebrate, for those who have paved the way for justice. You have called us to be bridge builders. And so as we leave this place, give us passion, empower us, and equip us. Open our hearts, our eyes, our ears, our minds to seeing injustice where it is, and give us the courage to speak out and act out in ways that bring justice for all people. May we be bridge builders and work on your behalf to bring about the beloved community, one humanity that has justice and equity, hope and love for all people. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you look on the back of your program, you have the words to the song, We Are Called, and you guys are going to lead us in this? Thank goodness.
We're going to try.
All right. Thank you.
Live in the light, shine in the joy of the love of the Lord. We are called to be light for the kingdom, to live in the freedom of the city of God. We are called to act in justice. We are called to love tenderly. We are called to serve one another, to walk humbly with God. Come, open your heart, show your mercy to all those in fear. We are called to be hope for the hopeless, so hatred and blindness will be no more. We are called to act in justice. We are called to love tenderly. We are called to serve one another, to walk humbly with God. Sing, sing a new song. Sing on a great day when all will be one. God will reign, and we'll walk with each other as sisters and brothers, united in love. We are called to act in justice. We are called to love tenderly. We are called to serve one another, to walk humbly with God.
Thank you, David Miners, for being with us here. Have a good evening and a safe journey home.